Happy National Paranormal Day. Yes, today is May 3rd, National Paranormal Day. So, after last night's show, which you're just about to listen to, 2 hours later at 12 a.m., we had a roundtable National Paranormal Day discussion with my friends Heidi Hollis, Tiffany Mack, and Cheryl Costa. Heidi Hollis, you may know of Shadow People and The Hat Man. Tiffany Mack is the co-host of Universal Secrets. She's also an experiencer and abductee. And Cheryl Costa is a brilliant ufologist who co-wrote the book UFO Desk Reference. We had a really fun time last night, and I think you'll enjoy it. So I encourage you to go and check out that podcast. We aired that on my YouTube channel. So that's youtube.com/paranormalpop. If you want to listen, go to iTunes or wherever you download your podcast and just type in Coffee and UFOs, and it should be the first episode that populates at the top. So again, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Paranormal Now, and I encourage you to check out the Coffee and UFOs podcast as well. Thank you so much, and may the force be with you. Welcome, good souls, to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. Joining me tonight is Constance Victoria Briggs, and we will be tackling all forms of mysteries tonight. So hold on to your seats, because this is going to be a wild ride. And hopefully a spiritually enlightening ride at the same time, because you know what? All these things are connected. Okay, so in the last 30 minutes, if you would like to speak with Constance, you can call the Paranormal Radio app line. That's 1-885-KGRA live. That's 1-855-KGRA live, or 855-472-5483. You'll call in. Bill, our producer, will pull you on standby, and when you're ready, just listen for that cue, and we'll bring you on the air and share your stories and whatever questions you have for Constance, because I'm sure there'll be many mysteries left, even though we may solve some along the way. There will be many mysteries left at the end, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing programs like this, and that's what I love. I love chasing the mystery with all of you, so thank you for joining us tonight on KGRA DB, live every Sunday, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, so, tonight we're going to do something special on the Paranormal Pop YouTube page. So after tonight's show, which ends at 10, stay tuned for Tracy Austin's show. And then after that, if you want to pop over to youtube.com/paranormalpop, youtube.com/paranormalpop. At 12 a.m., we are kicking off the official National Paranormal Day with a round table of, some of my paranormal friends that you are all very familiar with, including Tiffany Mack, Heidi Hollis, Tui Snyder may or may not be joining, and last minute, Cheryl Costa has jumped in as well. So it's going to be a really fun roundtable tonight. So I hope you all will join us for the kickoff of National Paranormal Day. Yes, technically it will be May 3rd at 12 a.m. tonight. And last year I did it on the day. But what I didn't like is that the live feed overlapped with KGRA programming. So I was trying to avoid that this year, hence the late night stream. So I hope you all will join us. That's youtube.com/paranormalpop. Joining me tonight is Constance Victoria Briggs to discuss some of the most intriguing mysteries out there. Constance is a writer with unique insight into extraterrestrials, conspiracy theories, metaphysical, spiritual, and cosmic questions. It is her goal to investigate the mysteries of the universe and how they connect to humanity. She is the author of the Encyclopedia of Angels, Encyclopedia of God. I kind of feel like the only person that should write the Encyclopedia of God would be God, but that's a big challenge. The Encyclopedia of the Unseen World and the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries. She is a frequent radio podcast guest and has been a guest speaker on several shows discussing such topics as angels, extraterrestrials, ancient aliens, life after death communication, out-of-body experiences, moon mysteries, etc. Miss Briggs has been featured on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory, Midnight Society, The Leak Project, The Kingdom of Nye, Earth Ancients, Paranormal Soup, The Paranormal and the Sacred, and others. A lot of shows out there with paranormal in the name. If you want to find out more about Constance, go to ConstanceVictoriaBriggs.com. Constance, welcome to Paranormal Now.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks for having me this evening.
Thank you for joining. I love a good mystery, and I know that you cover the wide gamut, but I have to ask you before we get into the moon mysteries tonight. What did you discover when you were writing the Encyclopedia of God? Because that's kind of a huge subject, right? All throughout history, you have culture upon culture, changing myths and stories and religion and beliefs. So really, that's like the biggest topic there is.
Mm-hmm. So, what was interesting for me is well, for the book itself, I was trying to get a different, give everyone a perspective on the different beliefs in God around the world, and see if, everyone was kind of believing the same thing, or was was God that different? But interestingly enough, from that research, I found that it sounds pretty much, like the same God. The beliefs are different, the cultures are different in that, the names or maybe the description of the person of God or the entity of God is different, but the fundamental idea of God is the same. And that is that most of them do believe that, when we leave here, we will ascend to God and be with God, no matter what form he takes. And even for the religions that believed in more than one God, they believe that each of, let's say the ancient Greeks, for instance, we know that they had a lot of gods, but each of those gods represented a different characteristic, really, of the one God, supposedly. And the basic idea seems to be the same across the board to me. We all end up the same place with God in a beautiful paradise, no matter what you want to call it.
Well, I guess that's true of the Hindu pantheon as well, right? They're all kind of aspects of a human personality trait, but also an aspect of the cosmic source. Right.
And but it's the same all over. If you ask them to describe God, he is the infinite being there, and which we all return to in the end. And in ancient times, I believe that during that period when we were all just trying to start out and find ourselves, all the way back to Mesopotamia, all of those those people sort of I think blended all of these beliefs, and they came out with a lot of different names and descriptions, but the fundamental idea of God, who and what God is, remains the same.
Right. What about you? Do you believe in a God, and were you raised with a belief?
So I was raised in the Baptist church, and I wasn't quite satisfied with religion from a very, very early age. I didn't feel that my questions about God was being answered. So I sort of branched out as I got older and started studying the different religions, which sort of led me to where I am today. I believe that we all come from a source of power. I believe
Mm-hmm.
God, to me, is a source of power and intelligence and love that we carry within us. And I feel like we've left this source and have gone out into the universes, plural, to learn and grow. And then to, once we're finished growing, we return and connect back to that source. But I don't believe that God is a person sitting on a throne in the heavens overlooking the earth, which is basically what I was taught when I was young.
Right. And raised Catholic, my understanding was similar, right? There seemed to be some contradictions, but, sometimes with mysteries, you have to hold, different contradictions at the same time because we don't know the answer, right? But I always thought that the Bible tells us that God is unknowable, right? Our human brains can't conceive fully of what God is, but then at the same time there are attempts at describing God, and then of course it's sort of whittled down to this idea of a man sitting up there like directing the circus, which it feels like sometimes.
Well, it has been brought down to the level, God has brought down to the level that we can try to understand and try to interpret. There's just no way we can fully comprehend who and what God is what I've learned. And also not only that, but in our minds, we think, okay, we're here and then God is there. God is up. And, but honestly, there are many levels, there are many dimensions, there, and there are many layers of advanced beings that have creator powers before I believe you get to that ultimate source. Okay.
And is there a way to sense the source, do you think, though? Because I know that, having used psilocybin in the past, or through meditation, or just a moment in nature, you can feel that something, right?
You can feel that connection, that you're a part of everything.
Yeah,
it's an awakening to when you can walk, when you've grown to the point, and it can take you many lifetimes in here and other worlds to get to this point where you feel connected to everything. It doesn't necessarily happen in one lifetime. Our soul person carries the experiences from one place to the other, from one life to the other. We don't awaken and just become fully, a spiritual entity that can feel God in one lifetime. It takes a long journey.
Right. So I guess, would it be fair to say that that's like the tip of the iceberg, what we feel in those moments?
I would say it's the tip of the iceberg. I would say that we have a lot of lessons and a lot of growing to do before we can reach that higher level to that pinnacle of where and who God is. Where God is.
And that's like the biggest mystery. But let's talk about the moon mysteries. We look up into the sky, and for eons, it's been this presence. It's been reflected in terms of a goddess, energy, a force over not only nature but over ourselves and our behavior. Mythologies have been built around it. A werewolf howling at the moon. There's something. The mystique of the moon is so deep and profound. What are you drawn to the moon? Why are you drawn to the moon, and to do that research?
Yeah. So just to start out with, who I am. I'm a person. I believe that we are not alone in the universe. So I started my research with angels and God and the unseen world and the moon. All of this is leading me to, my own conclusions as to what's really going on with us. First of all, I think that, as I said, we're not alone in the universe. And when I noticed that, because I'm drawn to the moon, I'm drawn to the beauty of the moon. I like, the magical aspect of the moon. But in my research, I also learned that there are some very strange things that are going on with our moon. And at first I thought, excuse me, well, this is really cool. This is pretty special. They're seeing lights up there. Oh, I wonder where the lights are coming from. That's pretty neat. But as I got closer to what I know today and to this book that I wrote, it went beyond the moon being this beautiful celestial magical object to the possibility that there are actually beings up there that are a part of what may just be a galactic community. That got me very excited, and I delved deeper into the mysteries of the moon.
What kind of galactic community is out there?
So I believe that, and it's really interesting, I'll just want to say up front, I believe that there are extraterrestrial people. I believe that there are many, planets out there with, extraterrestrial beings. I believe that there are different dimensions with extraterrestrial beings, and of course, anyone or anything that doesn't originate, on Earth in our definition is extraterrestrials, which includes angels. But in this case, oh my goodness, Alan, what was the question?
What's out there? What are these communities of non-humans?
Right. I wanted to say that we didn't get any further than the moon before we bumped into somebody, frankly speaking, in my opinion. Now, do we have proof of that? Is there evidence of that? There are things going on with our moon, which, of course, is why I named the book Mysteries. We don't have all the answers. But I've come to the conclusion that there's someone up there.
Yeah. And who's the someone?
Yeah, we don't know.
You don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
Do you have any inkling at all? Like, is there any evidence to suggest to you what they might be?
I've recently started a new book on my hypothesis of who and what they are up there. And if we go back, Alan, into a little bit of the history and the origin of the moon, if you don't mind my starting there and answering the question in a kind of a long way. So basically, as probably most of your listeners know by now, they don't have any definitive answer as to how the moon came to be. There's been lots of theories out there, but they can't nail one down, and that includes NASA. If you go on their website, their latest one, the giant impact theory, they pretty much say, well, we think that it was created like that, this way, but that's not definitive. So there's been a lot of speculation. Sure. One of my favorite theories as to where the moon came from, and I know it's far-fetched and I know it's a slim chance, but we've gone through the giant impact theory and the capture theory and the fissure theory and all of these theories that don't work. In 1979, I don't know if you know this, Alan, but in 1979 there was a paper written by a couple of Soviet scientists that looked at all of the research from the NASA astronauts when they have brought back the moon rocks and the moon dust and moon soil. They looked at that. They looked at the impact craters, and they saw that the impact craters were pretty much the same size, no matter how heavy the meteorite was that hit it, the moon. They all came back the same size. They looked at the elements from these rocks and from the dust that the moon is made up of, and they said, this is strange. We don't understand it, but what we think it is a spaceship. They said, and they went public with this, even though it could ruin their reputations with this, outright crazy idea,
sure.
That it could be a spaceship. Now, how could the moon be a spaceship? Well, they said that the elements that it's made up of are very tough, and that it looks like, because the moon, we've all heard that the moon reverberated when we blasted the ascent module into the moon. They blasted it, and it rained for 3 hours the last time. I believe it was 60 minutes the first time they did it, and there's no way that the moon would be able to do that if it weren't hollow. So they're saying you have what could be a planetoid that was hollowed out with a hard shell that could, the shell could stave off radiation and heat, and it could be hit by meteorites, and it would not be really damaged. They said they felt that it was sent across the universe and, landed in Earth's orbit.
Sent across the universe, like from one system, someone built this thing and
somebody
sent it to ours.
Somebody built a spaceship. They took a planetoid, is what they're saying, and they took equipment and they, emptied it out, and they sent it across the universe.
So it's like a retrofitting a natural object for their own ends.
Correct. So they said that they feel that this is kind of a Noah's Ark sort of situation. They feel like that there's living quarters in there. They said engines are in there, and that for whatever reason they stopped here, and that's where they have been ever since. So the question would be that, for me, I'm trying to figure out, why would someone do something like this? Why would advanced beings, who do this? Now, we have to remember that we are a very young race of a people. The cosmos and planets have been around for billions of years. I think that the universe is 13.8 billion years old. The Milky Way is 13.6 billion years old. And we've been around for about 6 million years. And then we've got the 200,000 year mark where we're improving. And then 6,000 years where we're living as a cultural beings. 2,000 years before that we were establishing ourselves, and then a few million years before that we were really primitive. So basically, we have not been around for billions of years, and there could have been beings that were out there for eons and eons that were able to grow on other planets and advance. So why then would beings take a spaceship and send it across the universe? Perhaps they were trying to escape a catastrophe. Maybe it was a dying sun. Maybe it was a war on their planet. Who knows? But that's what these two scientists put forward, and this theory has become very popular.
Well, yeah, so the Noah's Ark idea. I if we know, if we think of the movie 2012, right? It was the same idea that the world is going to end, and we need essentially these arcs to keep humankind alive. And they knew that the planet would be destroyed, would be mostly water, and they'd have to live on these arcs for some time. And in this case, let's say you don't have that technology for high-speed interplanetary travel, right? They don't have warp speed technology or whatever it is. Then, in a sense, that kind of makes sense, right? You can like pick up your civilization, put them on this craft. If you only have a civilization based on rocketry, and then project yourself out in the direction of a neighboring solar system. So then, I guess the question is, what happened when they got here?
Right. So this is, was it a generational ship? I would think, unless they had some sort of knowledge about shortcuts across the universes. The theory is wormholes, perhaps, or whatever. If they traversed the universe to here, it would have taken thousands of years. Was this a generational ship then? Did we have beings that were born, and just this was their whole world being there? So So, I guess to answer your question, are they still, we have to answer it with the question, are they still in there? Are they still living there? You know,
Well, one would imagine if the moon was a craft, a hollowed out planetoid, and it parked in Earth's orbit, that if they had enough technology to do that, that they would be able to at least jump from the moon to Earth at that point, right? Wouldn't that be the end goal?
well, maybe, or maybe it was to just, yeah, I guess that could be the end goal. And the question would be, that's one of my hypotheses. Did they leave the moon and come here?
Mm-hmm.
Are we they? Are we them? Are we a part of them?
Yeah.
Or are they here walking among us now? Or did they send some of their relatives, I guess, to Earth, and then others stayed on the moon, and they've been overseeing them? They've been overseeing, their brothers and sisters all of this time since they, put them here. There is a sun gate in Bolivia. They call it the Sun Gate. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. Tianaco.
Mm-hmm.
And on this Sun Gate, it dates back thousands and thousands of years, and it says essentially that the moon was brought into Earth's vicinity about 12,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So there's a belief, too, to support this idea of what the Soviet scientists said, that, there you have in the ancient past, someone saying, look here, that, this moon was brought in. It wasn't always there. Oh, interestingly enough, if I could share this with you, there is an ancient Zulu tale, Alan. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where the Zulu people, in their beliefs about the moon, said the moon is a hollowed out egg. This is how they talked about it.
Well, Constance, let's hold it right there. On the other side of this break, we'll jump into the Zulu story about the hollowed out egg. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio. I'm with Constance Victoria Briggs, and we have so many more mysteries to cover. I'm really enjoying my conversation with Constance, and I hope you'll hang with us until we return from the inverted upside down. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith. Thank you all for joining us on this journey through the mysteries of life, a cosmic sojourn with you. And Constance Victoria Briggs, our special guest tonight. Constance, so if you could take us back to the story we left at the break.
Yes, and can you hear me okay, Alan? I'm
yes.
sorry.
No, very good.
Okay, and I realized I didn't fully answer one of your questions, and I'll get back to it. The part was, who is up there now? I totally was talking, and I never wrapped that up. So the Zulu people have that legend where they said that the moon arrived here by being hollowed out by two extraterrestrial brothers who stole it, and they sent it across the universe, and that's why it's here. So I found it interesting that they have that story that so neatly is so similar to the Soviet scientists' version of what they think happened.
Well, that's really interesting. Yeah, and if they made this very treacherous journey from one solar system to another, and they were able to lock into orbit here. The thing is, it's a dangerous orbit to be in because the moon does attract asteroids or meteors, and so my fear would be that they get here and they land and they're like, oh my gosh, we can't stay in orbit. This is really problematic. And maybe that explains their being able to jump ship, as it were, to Earth, but not have enough time to bring enough technology with them to reboot the civilization as it was. I mean, maybe it's like a Robinson Crusoe kind of situation where like only so many made it off intact and landed on Earth. That's an interesting seeding story.
Yeah, that's some one aspect I hadn't thought of. I had thought maybe they sent them here and some remained there. Maybe they bred with us, and maybe they were humanoid, and they because there are stories in the Bible and other scriptures of beings that came and married the daughters of the earth and had this project, had these children that were giants. We haven't established all of our origins. We don't know really where we began. I mean, the scriptures, there's still a lot to read between the lines. We've established now that God is not sitting on a chair or a throne over earth. So I think there's still a lot that we need to answer. If you're religious or not, we don't know our origins. And there is some teachings that Adam, whose name is Adapa in Sumerian religion, was talking about the moon and prophesizing about the moon. And, the question is, did he have some knowledge of the moon? Was that, the beginnings, when the Sumerians, the story is that they also started a slave race, that, their creation story that we came from, we were originally slaves to these beings who were trying to mine earth for gold. Were we a part, some people think this happened on the moon. Could that have been true? Could that have been the case? But, going back to the Noah's Ark theory, let's say they all came down and, there's still that hollow moon. The moon is locked into Earth's orbit. So if the originators are no longer on the moon, who's up there? Because someone is up there, I think.
Still,
absolutely. And, I've been thinking about it a lot. They could be, as I said, originators. Some of them still there, or they could have been, beings that came across the moon for whatever reason and decided to inhabit it, or use it, or mine it. Yeah. There are stories that the moon is being mined, perhaps for helium-3, or who knows what else.
Well, my understanding of the moon ringing, right, making that reverberating sound, the science says. Conservative science says that, or did say at one point, that because the moon was like solid, right? It was just solid rock. They didn't believe there was water on the moon, that would account for some of that reverberation. But now we know that there's actually quite a bit of water, it sublimates, when it comes above the surface and hits the light. But there's plenty of frozen water in many pockets of the moon, and perhaps much more deeper that we're just not, we've not yet confirmed. So if that's the case, that might undermine, I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but I wonder if that does undermine the idea that the moon is kind of just a hard crystalline rock, and that's why it rings. So I think that the discovery of water actually supports your theory more than it does the conservative scientist theory.
Right. I'm not a scientist either. But there's more going up. There's more going on with the moon than it just ringing like a bell. I mean, part of to go with what you just said, also some of the rocks that NASA astronauts brought back differed in age from the Earth by millions of years. By a lot. So they've established. That it wasn't created. The moon was not created, by that giant impact theory. So, There's a lot going on scientifically that I can't explain, but
What?
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, but if you want, we can get into some of the other things, going on up there that makes me feel like someone's there.
Yeah, well, let's get into that a little bit. As of late, the Chinese, India, and I believe ourselves even, we've had satellites go to the dark side of the moon and take imagery. So we've been waiting for that for a long time to confirm that there are cities on the other side of the moon, and yet we haven't, at least as of late, seen recent photographic evidence of that. So we have a question in chat from Kathleen, and have there been stores of light in cities on the other side of the moon? Is that true? So based on the most recent imagery versus past imagery, what's your take on that situation?
You know what? So I've been trying to figure out just how much of the dark side of the moon that we've seen. Have we seen it all? Did they go all over? Because, the moon is the same size as North America on both sides of the moon. We can put the continent of North America on the front and the back, and then you've got all that, on the side of the moon. So I'm not sure even how much of the dark side of the moon they've seen. I don't know if you have that information, but I don't. So there's a lot of area to cover. When our astronauts went up, they only saw less than 1% of the near side of the moon. There's tons of it they haven't seen. So I don't know if there's cities, did they miss the cities or not, because we don't know how much they saw. However, there is a theory that there may be bases again inside of the moon. The moon could be filled, the scientists are saying that they, could be filled with lava tubes or caverns. There have been a lot of pictures, in the recent, people uploading pictures because astronomers are getting all kinds of stuff now in our modern era of what looks like UFOs flying around the moon and perhaps coming inside and, in and out of holes or caverns or what have you of the moon. So, yeah, there could be cities there. And I just want to say, I haven't seen them myself. I am looking for them. There are some, from what I understand, some old NASA pictures that were taken before the rumor has it they started covering things up. But there are some old pictures out there. I just actually ordered one of the books. I've gone through it, but there are people. I know there are some fabulous researchers who have looked at some of these pictures, and they're saying that there are cities that they see in these photographs.
Yeah. So what I'm about to say probably would ruffle the feathers of every skeptic or debunker out there. But just like when we see a UFO, right? It's usually at a distance, unless it's a close encounter or abductee experience. And they seem to be in control of the situation. So my assertion is that they are very well aware of where our satellites are at any time, where our planes are at any time. They seem to be able to control our technology. And so if they want to stay hidden, they'll stay hidden. If they want to be seen, they'll be seen. And so if you're on the backside of the moon, maybe they're just smart enough to, turn the lights off.
To not be seen. That's right.
Right?
If they don't want to be.
Yeah. And again, if they are subterranean, which would actually make much more sense if you're living on the moon, that whatever lights may have been captured in the past, this is speculation on my part, but whatever lights may have been captured might have just been like landing lights, or not a city per se, right? Just lights to indicate this is here and that's there. And therefore, on the surface, you still wouldn't have massive architectural structures that are clearly made up by design.
Well, I think one of the, there's so much information out there. I don't know if Kathleen had seen this. I'm not 100% on board about this, but it is a mystery, and I don't know. But someone had said that the moon is covered by a hologram, that story is out there, and that they've seen, like the waves of this hologram going past. Some astronomers have said they've seen something weird, and then one astronomer said, "Oh, something went, for a glimpse. I was watching the moon, and for a second I saw what looked like cities, and then all of a sudden it was God. Is the moon a hologram?" So that was very, very interesting, because we have we still have those reports from the photographs that I just mentioned, that they actually did see some cities on the moon, but we don't have that definitively yet. And I agree that the extraterrestrials, they're advanced. They could hide whatever they want. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but to go along with what you were saying, if you believe in the NASA missions, and I've come across a lot of people, I don't know if there are any in your audience who do not believe that we ever went, but that's another story. But if you believe that we went, it looks like all of the NASA missions that went up were either they saw UFOs or strange lights following the craft. All of them. All of the astronauts saw something, which tells me that we're being watched, and that they do know, Alan, and they could hide things in advance.
I mean, Edgar Mitchell had essentially a spiritual experience up there. It was transformational, and when he was up there, he was experimenting. I forget who was down on Earth. It was like his own little private thing he had going on, but he was trying to send thoughts, right? And he was doing a telepathic experiment. So, the people that went up there, you had maybe more hardlined conservative, but you also had astronauts, and still have astronauts, that are probably more open-minded than we know. Because obviously, like any field of science, they have to be careful about what they speak of. And I understand that to a certain degree. But, one day something's going to come knocking on the window of the ISS, and it's going to be during one of the live feeds, right? And we're not going to be able to deny it any longer. Do you think our government really is trying hard to suppress this, or are they as confused as we are?
Oh, that's a really, that's a good question. Okay, so number one, I'd like to say that how many of the people are still around that were there for those original NASA missions? I mean, how much do the people that are there know really now? Mm-hmm. They're saying that they can't even get, they don't even have the technology to send us to the moon without having to begin again. So mm-hmm. I wonder, how do they hand that down? Okay, yeah, here are the moon pictures from, I don't know, Apollo 15, whatever, and here's this cigar-like craft. Don't tell the next few generations about it. Yeah, I mean, how is it working? Do they even know themselves? To a point, or do they know? And each leader that comes in, each president or whatever the title of the person is in NASA, this information is passed down. But are they trying to hide it? Mm-hmm. Maybe they are, and maybe they have a really good reason that we don't know, or maybe we shouldn't know about, or are not ready to know about yet.
Well, I here's my theory, because just recently in the news it was announced that SpaceX won the contract to build the rocket to land on the moon for Mars, right? For the moon. And it's based on the Starship design that isn't even complete yet. They're still in testing phase. It's exploding, right? They haven't had like a fully successful launch and landing, and yet they still won the contract. And it's interesting because Elon Musk has said some controversial things in the past in regard to space, extraterrestrials. He even intimated the pyramids being built by aliens or something along those lines, whether it was half in jest or not. It seems to me that if the government doesn't want to have its hands dirty by saying, we knew this and we lied to you, one of the best ways to disseminate disclosure would be to have a private company, be involved. And then they go, hey, what's this? and then they release the information, and then NASA goes, "Oh wow, that's extraordinarily, interesting," and then they can just play dumb. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is interesting that Elon Musk is the one who is given permission to send his tech to the moon and back, which means he's going to get a lot of information. It's required. He just has to, logistically, from NASA. He needs all that data that they have in order to achieve a mission. So what do you think?
I'm just really, I agree that could be the case. That's an interesting hypothesis and one that I hadn't thought of for sure. But I have to tell you, I'm really surprised that they're talking about going back with all, given what we do know about the moon and that there are things going on up there. Either they know something that they're not telling and they know it's safe to go, or they don't know anything because, looking back now for a very long period of time, they have been seeing lights moving around up there, shadows moving around up there, objects moving across the moon, UFOs following the astronauts to the moon. There's all kinds of interesting things. They've found what appears to be structures on the moon. Some of them look like ancient ruins. Was there a war on the moon? But they still want to go. So either they know something and they know they're safe. Oh, the story that we were warned off the moon. That's a live one. It's almost, there was recently someone who came forward and said, that really happened. We were warned off the moon. If that were true, I would think we would be a little bit nervous about going back unless they know something we don't. But also maybe that's why they went to Mars, right?
Well, I think eventually, even if there were beings there and they said, hold up, not yet, back off, right? With our technology, inevitably, someone will get there. And I think that the private industry and other countries like China and India and Japan are really stretching their arms and getting out there. If there are beings there, you can't cover it up forever. They can't, I wouldn't think, be able to hide forever. So eventually they would have to sort of allow us to go there. Because otherwise, what happens? Conflict? That doesn't seem like what they want. It seems like they wanted to just keep away from the humans. Do you think that these beings that are on the moon are the same beings that are behind the UFOs and UAPs that we're seeing now?
Right. That's a really interesting question. Okay, so I think that number one, there are possibly more than one race of E.T.s on the moon. Like I said, the moon is huge. If they're not the originators on the moon, then are they, extraterrestrials that discovered the moon? And do they have some agreement with them among each other to share the moon or share the, whatever they might be mining for, like helium-3 on the moon? Mm-hmm. Do they have different territories? Much like, on Earth, we have different, states or different countries. Are there different territories on the moon? So, but in answer to your question about the UAPs, there's some talk about the moon being a way station, a place where extraterrestrials are through. And then leaving and some coming this way. I would think that since we see so many, thousands of UFOs are reported, and we see so many, I would think that since the moon is so close, some of them may be coming from there to here and back. Why not?
Right. One, it could be a way station. Do you think that, because there's a theory that extraterrestrial, or I guess terrestrials, are living within the Earth, and that they've been here, they're a part of the Earth, the subterranean entities. Do you believe in that hypothesis?
Yeah, the hollow Earth theory.
Mm-hmm.
I love that theory, and I've been doing some research on it. I tend to think there are, from what we're hearing about ships coming and going from our oceans, There have been, and some of the rivers even are. I can't even begin to tell you the names exactly where the planet they've seen them, but there have been ships seen leaving and going from the water. So I think so. Of course, we have that really famous story of Admiral Byrd. I don't know if you're familiar with Admiral
Sure.
Byrd,
Mm-hmm.
but one of my favorite stories, and I'm still trying to understand this a little bit. Did Admiral Byrd find a hole and fly inside, or did he actually find a portal? I was thinking a portal to another dimension, but I did, put that aside when he said that the people there sent him back with a message for us and said, for the people living on the surface,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't get ourselves together, we're going to blow up each other and, kill the life on the planet. And that was a warning. So, and I don't think Admiral Byrd was crazy. I think there's something going on there, but we haven't any evidence. About 10 years ago, there was a ship. There was someone had planned to take volunteers to find out, if the Earth is hollow, and they were going to leave from Antarctica and try to figure it out. I don't know what happened to that excursion.
I remember they were trying to raise funds for that.
Oh yeah. Oh man,
Yes.
I was thinking at the time I had a little boy, and I was like, oh, that would be fun to go on. I'd love to be on that, but I don't know whatever became on that. But to answer your question, and I have never said this on a show, I think there is something going on there.
And I think you're right that Admiral Byrd, I mean, he was a highly credible pilot. And so there was no indication that he was otherwise, off his rocker, as it were, right? I mean, this is just this random thing, this experience that he had, and he reported on it.
Yes. Fascinating. I love it. But I tell you, we are living in a very strange world, as you know. There are reports of so many odd things. And sometimes I feel like I'm alone on an island because I'm studying all of these things, and the people around me, they're just going, and we're on with their lives, and they have no clue that there's an Admiral Byrd that says there are people living inside our Earth. And others that are saying, there are people on the moon. Speaking of the moon, very quickly, I recently heard that there was an Apollo 18 and 19 that went up, and that was a disaster. Whereas before, in my research, I had always thought that those two missions never happened, but right now in the paranormal news, there is someone who has come forward and said, no, they did happen, and something happened out there. We were warned off the moon, and so now the idea is, because we were warned off, that's why we've gone to Mars instead. And we just need to be warned off there, I guess.
I was going to say, like, aren't they waiting there for us, and be like, nope, turn around, and gosh, we have a helicopter, right? We've got a rotocopter up there now buzzing around, and the next one will be far more advanced. I mean, we'll be able to cover so much ground so quickly and get so many detailed shots, and we'll know exactly where to direct the rover so that they don't waste their time, because before they'd scan, right? They'd see a picture, and off in the distance they would see something intriguing, and it would take forever for the rover to get there. Now they can send this copter out in advance to see if it's even worth the time. So our exploration of Mars will be exponentially faster. So if there are those that don't want us to discover what's up there, now would be the time to interfere, because the next mission is going to, just be absorbing information and scanning the topography.
Well, I know that you're right, but that little helicopter went down the other day. I don't know if they got that going again. And I was thinking, I wonder what happened to the helicopter. So yeah, I do need to go and check to see if they got it moving again. But I don't know if you have seen any of the pictures coming off of Mars, and some of the close-ups and some of the people that are watching. Some of the stuff is just amazing. It looks like there was a war up there. Things look like they have been blown up. I mean, these are clearly, not natural formations that they're showing. Some of them look like animals and people. When you go close,
let's hold it there, because there's a whole history of analyzing Mars photos and deciding for ourselves whether it's worth even contemplating that beings were living up there. Richard C. Hoagland was a big proponent of this, and it doesn't seem to be as much of a focus these days on it as there was 10 plus years ago, and yet there's so many more photographs. So I'd like to get your take on that, Constance, when we get back on the other side, and so many more mysteries. This is Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now on KGRA Radio, and the new website is kgradb.com. I will see you all on the flip side. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your grateful host. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. My guest is Constance Victoria Briggs, and we are covering all aspects of the cosmic mysteries, and we will solve one at a time in the next hour. If you want to call in and ask Constance your questions, call the Paranormal Radio app hotline. That number is 1-85-KGRA live, or 1-855-472-5483. Call in, stand by, and then we'll get you on the air with Constance. And of course, a friendly reminder, tonight we are celebrating Paranormal Day, National Paranormal Day, and that starts at 12 a.m. and we'll be celebrating in a roundtable format with some of my other paranormal friends. So I'll put that link in the chat in Facebook and YouTube. So please join us later tonight on the conversation. It's a loose format, so who knows how long we'll go for, and jump in the chat. I'd love to involve you in the show as well. So, Constance,
yes.
What do you really think is happening on Mars? Like the moon, do you think that there is actually a civilization that exists there now and they're hiding? Or are we looking at, like you said, indicated early before the break, remnants of a culture gone by?
I honestly have only done a little research on the moon. In my opinion, is that maybe there's someone living there, hiding, living inside the moon, much like we discussed on living inside the Mars, maybe in caverns that they, are lava tubes that they went under. It looks like there was a destruction, on Mars, and I've read about some past life regressions. Where people said they once lived on Mars, in another life. So I think that's interesting. And then we have that Israeli security. What was his name?
He was like a national defense. I forget his actual title.
Right. Yeah. I'm actually trying to get his book, but it's not in English. Who actually outed the Galactic Federation and said, they're working with extraterrestrials there, and the extraterrestrials said not to tell the people of Earth because we're not ready. That sounded very interesting. The man has credentials as long as my arm. So yeah, there's something going on there. It could be a civilization, or it could just be that there's only a base and they're working on some secret something there. But I certainly do believe that the moon was once inhabited. And I believe there's a connection, Mars. And I believe there's a connection with Mars and the moon and Earth.
Okay, and his name was Haim Ashed, and he was
Okay.
the former Israeli space security chief. And he says extraterrestrials exist, and Trump knows about it, and I suspect so did President Obama, and so did Bush. Because
Right.
we've seen those interviews, and they all seem to kind of tiptoe around it. They're very careful in their phrasing of how they respond to those questions. I mean, Stephen Colbert had a really direct line of inquiry with Obama, and he kind of cornered him, and I thought it was really impressive. This was
I saw that.
Yeah, it was really good. I was like, finally somebody took it to the next level, right?
Right.
So to me, that was one of the biggest breaking stories of 2020 in regard to this phenomena, and it was barely even covered.
It was barely covered, and I don't think that the media cares. It just boggles my mind. I mean, down to earth come down for 1 second. The crop circles. Look at the crop circles.
Sure.
How can we not be having town hall meetings about crop circles?
Right.
They don't care, and they pop up all the time. Nobody cares. I don't understand. Anyway, that's just my little rant for a moment.
Have you been on site to a crop circle before?
Not yet. Alan?
Yep, I lost you for a second.
I lost you too for a second.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm. You don't see me now?
I can see you now.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I was saying that's my little rant. So I'm not surprised that they're not covering it. Maybe they're told not to cover these things. Maybe that's all part of being secret and, not to have people's attention, put towards any of this. I don't know.
Well, your attention is definitely towards much of this. What else about the moon haven't we touched on that you can share with us?
We haven't really talked, I guess, about we talked about a little bit the structures on the moon. Mm-hmm. There's some fascinating stories, about what's been seen up there. There was one story, I believe it was the Apollo 17 astronauts that are said to have come across in their little dune buggy there. When they were riding around, they came across a structure. Mm-hmm. And the story is that Walter Cronkite was narrating this, what was being seen on the moon back to the audience on Earth. Some people say, oh, that never happened, but there is a very interesting little mini documentary out there that looks, pretty good. And it did tell of these astronauts traveling. They came across this large rectangular shaped structure. Mm-hmm. And Walter Cronkite reportedly said, that looks like a man-made structure. And they cut it off. Okay. They cut the feed. And when he came back 20 minutes later, he said, oh, they said that the camera on the little buggy took a picture of itself.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. However, Walter Cronkite was such a huge personality, so his numbers were very large. It's not like today where people are listening to multiple newscasts, right, and podcasts and streaming. I mean, he had millions and millions that were listening to him, and you would think that would be something that people wouldn't forget, but I don't know. Maybe I know that there are stories in the Aztec UFO case where people were driving and heard a radio broadcast regarding the Aztec UFO crash, and then they never heard anything again, and it was never reported on. And then Roswell, and it was really the story of the day, and that had already been kind of swept under the rug. So maybe it did happen.
Well, they've seen a number of odd things up there. Like I said, there are reports of them seeing pyramids. Some of the ruins are said to look like they were bombed. So definitely, something happened up there. What I'm surprised about and what I really don't understand is why the subject of extraterrestrials is such a secret. I would have thought it would be an exciting thing to discover for everyone. Yet I'm meeting people who sort of feel like, shouldn't be talked about, or people who kind of feel like they own the industry and only they can talk about it sometimes. But I'm surprised that it is a secret. I thought that first contact would have been something for the whole world to be a part of. I didn't know or understand that this was a problem. That there might be a huge cover up. I don't really get it. I know that from my research with the Apollo missions, there were people that I mentioned in my book. I've got these little paragraphs and blurbs in my book so that people can pick up the information really fast without having to read 10 tons of them. But these little blurbs talk about some of these some of the things that were seen with the Apollo missions. And I lost my thought again. I'm talking so much, Ellen. I apologize.
No, that's all right. So what's next, though? I mean, do you think that contact is going to occur, or do you think that there will be disclosure first and then it'll evolve some other way? Or is contact happening already?
See, I do believe that. I know what I was saying. With the Apollo astronauts, when their missions, there were whistleblowers that came forward that said, we were covering these things up, which tells me from pictures that they have seen that, that would have been first contact in a real sense of the word. If we had astronauts go up there and they saw these things and they had some sort of ET contact, isn't that first contact?
Yeah, that would be, I suppose.
Isn't that a form of first contact? Because the story is that, at least one of them bumped into extraterrestrials. But can you repeat the question?
Well, it's a two-part question. So, and it really depends on what we mean by the word contact, right? Because, I do believe experiencers, some of them have had real ET contacts. And so, but that's something that is kind of a isolated event, right? It happens to that person. When we speak of contact with a big C, we're talking about contact in the way that says, hi, society, this is our society, right? So when did that happen? Is that what you're saying actually happened, except we just kept it on the DL? Or will it happen at some point where we'll have that shaking of the hands moment with the cameras on us?
Mm-hmm. So I believe that we have had a form of first contact. We haven't had, of course, anyone, as you said, land and say, we're here, like in the Star Trek movie, where I don't know, the Vulcans came down and made that first contact, I think.
Yeah, that was a good book too.
We haven't had that happen. But, I do agree that experiencers are out there and they have met extraterrestrials here. I do believe that we are being visited and have been being visited for many of years. That is a kind of first contact. And I believe that for people like us that are getting the word out about, for example, moon mysteries, there's something happening on the moon. People who are coming forward with saying, what, I traveled on, a ship. Nobody believes me. I wasn't abducted, but I was a contactee. I believe that those are real. And I believe that those kinds of people, the researchers, I think all of us are kind of this kind of a disclosure. We are the disclosure, I think. But do I think that there will be someone who lands? I think that might be coming. And I think it may be coming sooner than we think. And maybe even in our lifetimes, because so much information is opening up.
All right, in 15 minutes, we're going to open up the phone line. So to call in, call 1-855-472-5483 or 185KGRA live for the Paranormal Radio app lines. Constance, you have written about angels.
Yeah.
So this begs the question, how many different entities, sentient entities, are out there? So not just biological, right? But whatever level of existence. Surely when you studied angels, you brushed up against different interpretations of what they might be.
Yeah. So we've got just under the heading of angels, there are so many different categories of beings that people may be mistaking for an angel. First of all, we've got beings that are with us here, I believe, that we cannot see, being in, the physical body. We can only see but so much. So we can't see the angels unless they choose to manifest. And by the way, the word angel, when I hear the word angel, I think religion, like a lot of people, but angels, can be beings for anybody of any background, any culture, any civilization. These benevolent beings have been known to help and have been around for ages. So
Well,
you don't have to.
I just have to interrupt real quick, Constance. Right now, you have a very angelic backdrop of light on you, so it's 100% appropriate. I love it. So
Thank you. My husband was warning me about that light. That's so funny you would say that, but anyway.
No, please keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, angels can, you don't have to be a religious person to have an angelic experience. These beings have been around for ages, and there have been reports of them coming to help people, miracles, what people call miracles happening, and they are known from the beginning, way back to the Sumerians until now. Some of them are portrayed even back to the Sumerian times with wings, and then others are not. So that's just one aspect of, answer to your question, but there are other beings with us that we cannot see. There are the angels. There are what I call guides. I have guides with me that I don't believe are angels, that I believe that come in with us to help us, and are trying to encourage us through life and motivate us to learn lessons that we actually come into Earth to learn. I don't believe that we start at birth. We existed well before we came here. We've experienced different lifetimes in different planets. So that thing that I believe that thing that we call the soul or the light body or the astral body is our real person, who we really are. And so we've got someone there. However, on the Earth itself, there are entities that we just don't know are around us. But most people, I think at least, if you haven't had a weird experience yourself, a paranormal experience, good or bad, odds are you know someone that has, because there are beings here that we can't see. William Blake, the mystic William Blake, talked about it. He said he could see them in the trees. He said he saw angels in the trees. He called them angels. I don't believe they were angels sitting around in the trees. I believe that they are spiritual beings that we cannot see that are there. Yes. Okay? That's different than an angel. I had one friend who said that she once saw a brownie. She woke up and there was a little man running across her floor, just like a little elf or a little brownie. I've had people tell me two different tales about seeing an entity that appeared with long nails, looked kind of like a goblin. He was small, and then disappeared. Two different areas of the world, same story. So I believe that there are many beings that we cannot see right here on Earth.
Well, it's funny you say that. Last week's guest, Natalie Fowler, she's a psychic medium, and she's encouraged her children to embrace that gift. And she said that her son had a sense that there was some creature or being or something in a presence in his room, right? And so she was, didn't believe it for a while, or wasn't sure. She did a cleansing, and she's like, well, how can this still be there? Well, according to her, she was kind of tuning into thinking it's a spirit or a ghost or something. But then when she shifted her perspective on that, she said she could all of a sudden see a goblin-like kind of a creature that looked like a Gamorrean from Star Wars, something similar but more friendly. And it is fascinating that whether you are on DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and you see little elf-like creatures, or whether you're a psychic medium and you see these creatures, there seems to be really something there. I mean, mythology has been telling us this for generations. Now, there is sometimes a connection between the fairies and elf world and aliens, and people draw this connection. Do you think that is fair? And maybe the aliens aren't actually aliens. What do you think?
No, I think there definitely are extraterrestrials or aliens. And I think that there are other beings that are living around us on the earth that we just, can't see. Some of us can perceive them, some of us can, and some of us can't. And I believe that once you get past earth, there are a multitude of extraterrestrial beings out there. One of the astronauts, and I'm forgetting the name, it wasn't one of the Apollo missions, but he had seen something moving through space that looked like a snake, and I wish I could remember his name. He saw something. So, I mean, and he swears by it, and I tell you, if I ever I'll have to look it up and text it to you because I can't remember his name. But I mean, that's just one aspect. I mean, he said there was something out there. And, there's a story that Soviet astronauts had seen angels. This story is said to have been smuggled out of Russia, out of the Soviet Union at the time, where on the space station, 3 astronauts were there working, and they looked out and they saw these beings. They said they were the size of 747 jetliners, and they had wings, and they had smiling faces and robes, and in these gowns, and all 3 of them saw it. They reported it. They left the station, and because they did rotations, other astronauts came 2 weeks later and reported the same thing. Excuse me, they called them angels, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
I believe they were a form of extraterrestrials. And that's just what I'm saying. I believe that we are living in a universe that is teeming with life. And it's been with us all the time. There have been reports of many years all across civilizations of different beings other than ourselves. They're still with us. They're still here. And I think that, we need to spend more time trying to figure it out, because sometimes they're not friendly. And the best word that we have is ghost. People think that everything is a ghost. Everything's not a ghost, guys. Sometimes you're dealing with an entity that is there that you can't see in your physical body, but it's not a person that has died and come back. Sometimes it's something else.
And what else could it be?
Well, I mean, for example, you're talking about the little goblins. They could be some of those mythological creatures that we have heard about out there that, are real. So it could be a number of things. There was one person who saw, what do you call those gargoyles? The gargoyles. One person, I was doing a show, and he called in and he told me this story that when he was a kid, he and his sister came across a gargoyle that was on the ground, complete with the wings and everything. And it was on the ground, and they ran. They were terrified. They ran to get their mother, and they came back and it was gone. I don't believe this person made that story up. So my point is answering your question, what could they be? They could be a number of beings that we just don't know that they're there or what they are.
Do you think that they're elementals that they're a part of sort of nature and planet Earth, and maybe they're an expression of Gaia's consciousness, or what do you think?
I think that they are a part of, for lack of a better term, I think that they are part of creation, and they are entities unto themselves, just like the human race are.
Well,
That's what I think.
Well, Tolkien, and he based his mythologies off of not only Christianity and the Old Testament, but other world mythologies, and he created the elves, and then I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're listening and you know better, that the elves experimented and created dwarves, or was it a higher being above elves? I can't remember now, but you talked about these fallen angels, right, in the Bible, and could that what be all these other little creations are, including ourselves? These either aliens or other higher beings, being them angels or what have you, having the ability to create, like we will one day ourselves. And it's sort of like it just gets passed down, the ability to create.
So I believe that there are different levels of creator beings out there.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying that between us and what I call the source, or what people are referring to as God, is that there are a lot of levels of creator beings. And yes, we will get there one day, but I don't know. I mean, these could be hybrid beings that they're seeing, but I also believe that with planet Earth came these other beings. I think that they are, like I said, part of the creation. Now, with that said, I do believe that there are spirits such as elementals and fairies that are real, and they're spiritual. I don't think that they're hybrids, but I think that there are different species of beings, and maybe they did come. There is a talk of fairies and elementals to take care of the plant life here. Yes, that could be their role. That could be what they do.
Yeah.
Why not? And I think possibly that the planets, may have their own spirit person, that is connected to them as well. Interestingly enough, I have an astronomer friend on Facebook who he's in Germany, and he's studying astronomy, and he watches the moon a lot. And people have sent him pictures from different countries of what looks like a black bird flying past the moon. Well, it obviously can't be a black bird, and it's different places within the planet. He suspects that it is a spiritual being. He thinks it's a jinn. And he's Persian. In Persian mythology, the jinn is a spiritual creature, but he thinks that it's a jinn. And I think that that's something to consider too. Each of the planets, can have what some people call an angel. I have them in my book, angels of this and that, spiritual beings that are attached, working, or just simply a part of an entity. Mother Earth could have her very own guardian angel.
Right. That's interesting, right? Well, because there is this beauty of the existence of all things anyway. I think any of us who are conscious enough, we can appreciate the majesty and the infinite draw towards wonder that this universe has created for us. And maybe those guardian angels are simply entities that are just like, I need to protect this thing. I need, this is where I'm going to hang out. Maybe a jinn is like the Mothman, right? And it's just the way we interpret it. And is it a bad thing, or is it just a harbinger, a warning saying, whoa, things are going to get bad here? But then that also begs the question, right? And this goes back to angels. If they are there, and they care about us, why can't they do a better job of giving us a heads up, I know,
that is the worst question for me when I get it. Why aren't they protecting everybody? I don't know. I'm trying to find the answer to that one. But I will tell you, they are protecting quite a lot of people. I've heard some amazing stories.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if sometimes people are giving a warning and they just don't get it, or they ignore it. For example, I'll tell you something that happened to me. I was at home and my little son was playing with his friend in my family room, and I was talking to the mom. And she was having quite a conversation with me, and I was listening, and I could hear the kids in the other room, and we kind of could see them. And I kept getting this, check the door, check the door, check the door. And it felt like in my ear something. And I finally had to interrupt her, and I said, Kathy, I've got to go check the door. Excuse me. I got up to go check the door, and it was open. And her 4-year-old was out. Ooh. And he was down the street. And my son was talking to himself playing. I believe, obviously, to me, that was a message. That was an angel. I call it an angel experience, where we, got down there and got her son, or we wouldn't have, we talking moms wouldn't have picked it up if I hadn't listened. Right. Something as simple as that. Sometimes we might miss the signs and miss the cues. I'll tell you something else that happened to me. We were on a camping trip, and again, the adults were sitting around in a circle talking, and the kids were off playing. It was a very safe area, and there was there were trees between us and the kids, but we knew where they were. They were safe. Okay, that's sure. I'll just leave it without going into more detail, making it longer. But I was getting Shireen's my daughter, and I'm listening and I'm hearing Shireen. I just got up and I said, "I'm sorry, I've got to go check on Shireen," and I went running. And when I get to my daughter, she's on the ground, and the kids are around her trying to figure out what to do. She had passed out. She had been injured, and she was a fainter, and she had passed out. Things like that happened. And sometimes people don't know that they're getting a message, or they don't understand. And I keep telling people, you've got to be open, to these things. Maybe you'll get a message like I did once, that right in front of me, I could see, I should wear my seatbelt. And I'm like, what? I have my seatbelt out. Boop, boop, boop. I didn't. Okay. So we do get messages.
That's very specific too.
Yeah.
Yes. And I believe, but to a degree, right? For instance, we pray for someone to be healthy when they're in the hospital, and they may pass away anyway. We pray and they survive. And then there's those instances where there's someone who is maybe hit by a car, right? And they're a John Doe, and they're brought to a hospital, and there's no one knows if they're where they are, what's happening, right? Maybe they don't have their ID. He or she is in the hands of doctors, and they don't have people praying for them, and it's touch and go, and they finally come through. So they didn't need anyone praying for them, right? It was the skill set of the doctors that were doing that. Or I heard this other argument about casinos, that, well, if everybody's in power of intention, you could actually tip things in their favor to at least a little bit of a degree. Why can casinos consistently be within that 50-50 range of statistics, so where they know exactly how much they can give away to get this much back? And I thought those are really compelling arguments. It doesn't mean I don't believe that we can have an effect on our reality, but those are things that do kind of check me a little bit. What's your take? Are there certain circumstances where maybe we are able to affect reality around us, and others where we can't?
I do believe that that old quote that that we keep hearing, that we are powerful spiritual beings. I think that we can manifest things. I think that where we come from originally, we come in here and we lower ourselves to a degree, but I still feel like we can manifest things in our lives, and that may be a part of that, as far as manifesting things in a casino or whatever. I do. I also think that when someone passes away, though, if we're praying for them and they pass anyway, Alan, this world is not as wonderful as where we actually hail from. So, death is not always a tragedy. We're the ones, I think, living in a pretty rough state. Once we cross over, I don't know if you've ever had any out of body experiences, but I have. And I tell you, being out of the body is it's a lot of fun.
Is it?
It really is. I mean, you're just in a whole different state of being. You move quicker. You can get where you want to with a thought. There's a lot of power in our original person, so we manifest things. But death isn't always a tragedy, because when we do move on, there is no death. It's life after life.
Yeah.
And we really are in a different dimension of living. We don't die. So whereas we're here and we're tortured, I know, because I lost my mother almost 2 years ago, and I'm someone who talks about life after death, and I'm still sad. So I know it hurts us, but I know also that she's okay.
Yeah.
And she's doing better than me. So maybe they needed, that transition, but we just can't see it.
The Paranormal Radio app lines are open, so if you'd like to call in, the number is 855-472-5483. That's 185-KGRA Live. If anybody has had an out-of-body experience, I'd like to hear that. I don't think we've had anyone call in and share an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience like that. That is intriguing, Constance, and I think perhaps the power of intention, like in our own lives, we can work hard for ourselves, right, and achieve something, but we can't work hard for someone else to get them to achieve something. So maybe that whole idea of manifesting your reality is just manifesting, energy that kind of pulls you along like a tide. And therefore you can't do that for somebody else, because that's their reality. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think that makes sense. I agree with you on that. You can't save someone else, But talking about manifesting things in your life, be careful of your thoughts, because those thoughts really are powerful, because you don't really know the power within you. And I'll say it again, we came from somewhere else, and we were powerful there. We really are powerful spiritual beings. I manifested black widows once. And I know, right? Sounds crazy, doesn't it? One of my biggest fears was the black widow spider. I grew up with the idea. My mother put it in my head, and I spent a lot of time on the West Coast, where I live, nervous because there's so many around. So I've heard. One year, they were everywhere, and I had an infestation in my garage. They were outside my house. And I swear to you, I really feel that I manifested those spiders. Why that one? Why an entire infestation in my garage? If I hadn't focused on it, I felt like to the point where I somehow manifested them. Well, you can do, so now I work on fears. Okay. If I have them, I try to, dispel them, but you can do that on the reverse. You can manifest good things in your life. You can manifest angels in your life.
Okay, we're going to go to the first call tonight on the Paranormal Radio app lines. And if you'd like to call in yourself, that number is 1-855-472-5483. Ron from Minnesota, you're on the air. Ron, can you hear us? All right. We do not have Ron. Hopefully he'll jump on in a second here. I don't know, Bill, if you lost Ron or lost the audio feed. But, oh, there you are, Ron.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Do you have a story or a question for Constance?
I was talking to myself. I said hello to Alan and hello to Constance, and great show, great topics. You guys are like all over the board. I don't know what to ask.
Just jump right in.
I just wanted to say a great show again, and I had a thought about eternal existence, Constance. That I believe that human beings were from the beginning of creation. We were almost like at the point of the angels. So, for instance, God created the universe. I'm going with the creator, okay? So forgive me if you don't believe in that philosophy. But in my point of view, I believe in the creator who created everything, okay? And of course, somebody's going to say, well, who created him? I got it, okay? I'm not arguing that point. What I'm saying is that God created the universe, and human beings, and in the human being point is that we were created and we can have free will. We can go anywhere. We can do anything we want. And we wind up on planet Earth at some point before where we are now. And we have always been a human being now. Okay? If that makes any sense. The angels were created as angels. Angels have only one set of rules to go by. Human beings have free will.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So now the point that I'm making here is that, as you say, there are other creatures and other creations out there, other beings out there that we don't understand. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that 100%. What they are, who they are, what the moon is, whatever, who knows? I don't know. One thing I do know, though, is that things are in the sky for us to do what? We got to look up. We have to look up to who? Mm-hmm. Whoever put it there.
Right? I mean, that's one way to look at it, literally. Right.
Yeah. So just remember that this earth and this physical life is not the end point. So don't limit ourselves to just here.
So, Ron, let me ask you, do you think that the angels then are here to serve human beings at the behest of God, and then that's their sole purpose?
I think they are here for a positive purpose to help guide us, yes. I do think that.
Okay. So one of my favorite movies is City of Angels. Another favorite of mine is, just slipped my mind, a Robin Williams movie where his wife commits suicide. Does anyone recall this? What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
I love these movies. And I love the concept of what angels are in the City of Angels and the abstract idea of what the heaven could be. And yet, I consider myself very much an agnostic, but in recent conversation with my wife, we've kind of debated that, and that really, I don't have a word for what I am, because agnostic doesn't really nail it on the head, right? I'm more like agnostic plus, because I don't believe in a singular entity that just said, aha, I'm going to create the universe. And I respect those that do believe that. I just don't know if I believe that, but maybe someday, if that's true, then I will believe that, right? But I do think there's a source, and I think everything kind of came from that source. And so if there are angels, as we call them, then maybe in that kind of order of things, we all do have our own purpose. And so, Ron, and Constance, I think you both believe that angels have a purpose. Then what's our purpose? Ron, what do you think?
What now?
What do you think is the purpose of human beings?
That's a good one. I don't know. I think just to learn about what it's all about and try to advance to the next level, which is the soul level or the spiritual level. Right now we're in the physical level, which we're kind of limited as what we can understand and know. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're very limited in what we can learn here on this level. Some of us are going out of our spirit or out of our physical bodies, going into the astral planning, learning how to do the soul travel and things like that. and we're getting into that level where we can kind of connect with it, but not understanding it because we're in the physical realm.
Right.
Okay. As long as we're in the physical realm, we're going to be stuck here and tied to the physical realm without being able to go any farther advanced in the knowledge because we're tied here.
Well,
okay?
Ron, you know I'm a huge fan of...
You have to learn how to explore outside of this realm, but because we're connected to it, it's not easy.
Yeah, Ron, thank you so much for calling in. For everybody out there, Ron is the host of ERT Radio, EERT Radio, if you want to go check that out. So thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Constance, you know, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars, and I have to kind of disagree with Ron to a degree there, because I do think that the living force is everywhere. And I agree with that we're limited, but I don't think that we will always have to be limited. I would really like to think that as human beings, we can evolve and can affect reality, you know, through telekinesis or what have you at some point. And there are those like Caroline Corey that think that they're showing evidence of that. There have been many before her that have tried to show that. Do you think that we have that ability, if not now, in the future?
The ability to
affect reality, to go beyond just our physical body and move objects around, to truly manifest a reality in that way, to tune in to other levels of the universe without having to rely on technology or tools outside of our minds.
Right. So I believe that outside of this body, we already have that ability. You know, I told you I think that we're powerful spiritual beings, but I think that if you're talking about now here in this, you know, where we are, I think that we can go there. I think we can evolve there. I think we can grow, but I think we have to, we have to start in the beginning. And I think that in order to get there, we can't just be this, you know, a few individuals with it. I think if you mean as a people on Earth, I think that we can. I think that we can ascend to that kind of state where we're working, you know, where we can do that. But I think we're very far away from it for now.
And what about you? How far are you from it?
I don't know.
Getting closer?
Yes.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I'd like to think so, but it takes work. I'm one hell of an imperfect person, and I have my ups and downs, and you know, I do different techniques and things to try to just be a better person first. But you know, along those ways, you do have those moments where you kind of just tune in, and it feels like it's right there. Like it feels so possible that we can sort of just tune into that resonation of higher vibration. I remember reading a book when I was younger about, and I don't know how true it was, but it was about these Hawaiian shamans, and they truly believed that they could get themselves into a state of mind where their atoms could vibrate so that you can, in a sense, pass through walls if possible. And so they would do these meditations to prevent, let's say, a tidal wave or something coming in, or a storm. And I do wonder if that is a technology that, you know, is there. We just need the right cultivation of it.
I do believe that we can work together in groups to manifest that kind of a change, you know, to a point in the weather, maybe, you know, staving off a bad storm or a hurricane. That would require getting people of that kind of mindset together to do such a thing. I think that is happening, you know, today with some groups. Yeah, I think that could happen. On an individual basis, I think that one of the reasons we, once we transition from this life into the other, to the next, I think that we do have opportunities to still go to different worlds, to still work on that level. You know, we take with us who we are and what we learned while we were here, and we can put it into practice in the next life or even in the next dimension. We carry it. We're the same person. Mm-hmm. I keep telling people, learn all you can here, work on everything you can here, because you're going to take it with you. You can't take the material things with you. Work on your spiritual side so that you can, you can ascend, you move through higher realms, and maybe you can even help others. So I think we're all working and growing towards it, which is why I said death is not always a tragedy.
Yeah.
You may pray for help, but maybe they were supposed to move on so they can work on those other lessons.
You had a near-death experience.
Out-of-body experience.
Out-of-body. And so that had nothing to do with an accident. So what
No.
What caused it? Do you have any idea?
Yeah. I really don't know. It just started once in my, in my 20s, 30s, early 30s, I started leaving my body. And when it first happened, I knew what it was because I had come across information about it, but I hadn't expected that to happen. Now, I don't know if something within me, my spiritual self, did it, with the higher self or whatever. But I went to bed one night when it first, because I've had several since, many since.
Yeah.
But I went to bed one night and I woke up and I was not in my bed. I was in the sky. And I felt like I had taken a lot of, like you do when you take cold medicine. I hadn't, but I was groggy and it was darkness, but there was some sort of light around me and I could look down and I was in Virginia at the time, and there was Woodrow Wilson Bridge, and I saw it, and I could see the cars going past. It was right next to my apartment, and I thought, oh, I know what this is. And I went to move forward, and I caught myself because I floated forward, and I raised myself up, and when I raised myself, I was like, bobbing up and down, and I thought, oh, I know what this is. Yeah. And that same night, I traveled to elsewhere, a different dimension, I guess you could call it, and I came through the wall of a building. And I was going down the hall, and it was white walls, and it was light, and I could look in the different rooms, and I could see what was in there. And I had that experience, and I woke up the next morning, and I thought, oh my God, I was out of my body. And you can't stop your life. It was, transforming for me, but I still had to go to work. Just got ready and went to work, and.
I mean, for some people that would be stunning, and they would not be able to get to work.
Yeah, but you do, it is. But that was at a point. It was at a point in my life where I was experiencing things, and people weren't believing it anyway. So
they weren't believing it.
They were not believing it. I had a problem with an entity, and they were like, "Are you sure? You sure?" I'm like, "There's something in my apartment. Are you sure?" Yeah, I'm sure.
You mentioned that earlier, and so what are these negative entities or experiences?
I don't know what caused it. I can say that it could have been a ghost, or it could have been another entity, a different kind of entity. I do not know, but I could feel covers moving. I could feel a presence coming in.
Yeah.
It was very, upsetting, actually. And, but I don't know what it was. I never saw it physically. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. Mm-hmm. But people don't always believe, when you have an experience, you're going to get some, negativity. It's not until they experience things themselves that they're going to believe you. On a positive note, I know of a teacher whose father had passed away, and the teacher, her name, I'm not going to say her name, but she was a friend, and she worked in a Montessori school. She said her dad passed, and she was grieving. She was crying and crying, and one day she was walking down the hall, working late, and her father appeared in front of her, and he told her, stop crying. I'm fine where I am. You don't have to grieve like this. And she said to me, Constance, if anybody had asked if I believe in this stuff before that happened, I would have said, nah.
Wow. Okay, Constance, we're going to squeeze in one last call. Caller, this is Alan B. Smith on Paranormal Now. Welcome.
Hi, Alan. This is just real quick for your guest.
Sure.
So can anybody astral project, and is it easy to do, and is it sort of a meditation? And I'll take my answer off the air. Good night to both of you.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that anyone can astral project. I believe that we do astral project without even remembering it. You can leave your body. Most people do leave their body in the dream state, and they come back and they think that they had a dream, but they may have actually visited another realm. We are not tied to our bodies. We can get out and move around. You can practice it. I slip out of mine. I don't really practice. I just slip out. Raising two kids, I haven't had the time to sit and read all the books and practice. But there are people that do meditate and astral travel. I hear there are even people who plan it in groups. They travel in groups and they meet outside of their bodies. So, but yeah, in the sleep state, if you ever feel like you're flying, you may just be astral projecting.
Constance, if there's one thing you could leave us with tonight, what would it be?
Just remember who you are. Remember that you really are, I keep saying that old expression, we are powerful spiritual beings. We're living a physical life on this earth, and we're here to experience. So, get in all of the knowledge you can, so you can take it with you one day when it's your time and visit those different worlds. And also do some research as to what's going on out there. I think that will help us as a planet if we know that we're not alone in the universe, to maybe ascend to higher ways of thinking and living and being.
Constance, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Right. Absolutely. If you want to find out more about Constance, go to ConstanceVictoriaBriggs.com and get any of her books. She is a wonderful person, and I hope we'll have Constance back sometime in the future. Thank you for joining us tonight, and a friendly reminder that in the early morning of Monday the 3rd, which would be 12 a.m. tonight, please join me for a National Paranormal Day round table with some of our favorite friends and guests, Heidi Hollis, Tiffany Mack, Cheryl Costa, and maybe Tui Snyder. We're not sure. Natalie and Tui both had medical emergencies, so they may not be able to make it tonight, so we'll see. But either way, we're going to have a good time. I hope you'll join us and see you there. That link is in the chat. And as always, thank you for tuning in to KGRA Radio, the best in alternative talk radio. To find out more, go to kgradb.com. And thank you to our producer, Bill Skywatcher, and the head of operations, Eric Brager. Stay tuned for the Tracy Austin Show. And as always, everyone, keep your head up high and live in the mystery.